the stories. What do you remember?
Oh, it's hard.
It is.
But it's just, I guess starting from, maybe just starting from what you remember Grandma Molly talking about the family. Um,
What were,
any stories Grandma Molly had about growing up, or
oh, what we were going to talk about before.
yeah,
Okay. Well, like I said, she felt when she was very little and her real father was alive, that was like a great time in her life. And she used to tell stories about sitting on his lap while he taught, about singing songs with the school children, about the school children, the ones who didn't board, going home with little lanterns in the night and paying sometimes for their lessons with a dead chicken. Then when her, what's the matter, Addie? Oh, then when her father died, and then they were dirt poor.
and Grandma Molly was how old when her father?
I was under the impression she was 5 or 6 when he died. That was, it seemed to me that's what she told me. And then like the story sort of stopped. She did not like her stepfather. She said he was a drunk, that he worked, I thought, in Vienna, but it was a half a day's pony cart ride, so maybe it was this Lemberg that you speak of. And he would come back Friday night, but he'd drunk up his paycheck by the time he got home, so there was never any money for anything. And then I remember her telling me when she was very little, she got lost in the cornfields and they couldn't find her. That was one story. And then when it was time for her to go to America, she was going to stay with her Aunt Frida. The night before she left, she went out to the cornfields again with her mother. For her mother, I guess that was their last long heart-to-heart talk before she saw her again. And then the boat that she took to America, she had a great time because she did speak German and they were German sailors and she was very pretty. And so she flirted with the German sailors all the way to America.
Did she have a couple of girlfriends too?
That she was with. Now when she got to America, she worked in it putting feathers in hats, but she was underage. So one time when they checked to see about the ages of the employees, she had to hide in the bathroom. I remember that story. And about putting coins in the lights for the gas meters or whatever in order to have light at her Aunt Frida's. And I have her Aunt Frida's condiment set in the kitchen that she brought back from New York at one time. And I don't know, the stories of Europe, the time that she spent with a rich lady watching the children as an au pair type situation, that's when she knew what she wanted to live like here in America. And nothing got in her way, to the point where Grandpa Harry, there was a time when we were really little, and there was no house between the house on Outer Drive and the Wickhams who lived next door. There was an empty lot. And he used to plant corn and flowers with Mr. Wickham. They were from England. So we had the master gardeners doing their thing. And Grandma Molly would go pick a flower with Mrs. Wickham, but there was no way she was getting near the corn and tomato business. I mean, that was really grumpy. It was like I guess her mother at one time had to sell fruit or vegetables just to make a living. And the idea of growing fruits and vegetables and getting dirt under your nails really was not appealing at all. She couldn't understand it.
Do you recall any stories about her on the boat? What it was like for her to come to the United States?
No, she wasn't in steerage, and it wasn't.
Wasn't awful conditions.
No, not awful conditions. She had a room with her friends and pretty clothes, or as pretty as she could have at that time. I mean, her mother saw to it that whatever could be gotten up for her, it was not like you hear steerage in Ellis Island type thing. The only time she's ever spoken really about Ellis Island is when Aunt Bella came to America, because Aunt Bella had trouble seeing. Aunt Bella was very nearsighted, and she was afraid she wouldn't be able to find her. And most of any Ellis Island stories had to do with that, as opposed to her coming to America. And if you listen to her, it was just sort of like a breeze through. I don't know.
Did Grandma Molly talk about her mother at all? Do you remember anything about her? But I mean, just about personality, I should say. What kind of person she
No,
was?
that her mother was a very smart woman and a very kind woman. And that was pretty much it. She really loved her mother. She really hated her stepfather.
And what about her real father? Her,
He was the most intelligent man alive and the kindest, nicest person. I guess the way I understood is that he must have had a ruptured appendix or something. That's what killed him.
he died at age 33.
Yeah, he was
33.
young.
Talking about Grandpa Harry, what do you know about Grandpa Harry? What was...
There were two stories as a little girl that he used to tell me. One of them is locked in my subconscious forever and ever. One was the story when I was falling asleep. One was the story of the wheat fields. And I don't remember. All I remember is a mental image. He must have described wheat ripening. And many years later when we drove to New York and I saw it happening in the fields, I knew immediately by the way the wind was going through the fields that was wheat ripening, that's what it was, just from the stories. And the other stories were when he was little, his father, I guess, had apple orchards or whatever. And in the summer they would go to the Daca, which was the summer home. And when he was very little, he used to say he was so small that they made a bed out of the trunk lid, the steamer trunk lids, for him to sleep in because he was so tiny, and that way he could sleep next to his mother's bed. And then the only other thing he used to tell me about was walking through the orchards with his father as the pickers were picking and watching the pickers pick, and they'd have these sacks over their arms and put the apples in the sacks. And he was crazy about apples. Fresh, when the apples came out, he had to have Jonathan's, which in that day was the hardest thing imaginable to chop into. Those were his favorites. An apple pie, an apple and no cinnamon. And that, then when I was growing and lived in Grand Rapids, where there are a lot of apple orchards, and I took the kids once to go apple picking, then I saw the men standing in the trees with the sacks. Just like he described it. Some things don't change. And those were the only stories of his childhood that I remember, was the wheat stories and the apple stories.
What do you remember about Grandpa Harry, just as a child? What was he like? Maybe Mark can talk to that too.
Extremely charitable.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question but that he did well in his endeavors in this country after an initial period of perhaps some heartbreak and some hard work. I know he did some assembly line stuff just to get off the ground when they first came to this country, when he did anyway. But then when he went out on his own, he was pretty aggressive. And aggressiveness pretty well described him, but at the same time, although he did well, he parted with his money rather freely to those who were in need. That I do remember.
Mm-hmm.
Very generous, not only to his family. I think he believed that charity did begin at home, but he spread that outward as well. Very kind man. Yes, he had a temper, but I think that's not a real big issue in view of the other things that he did.
Mm-hmm. What about your memories of Grandpa?
Well, one of the stories, from New York, they came to Detroit because Henry Ford, we had the car industry here. And for somebody who used to get in trouble when he was a little boy for giving the right answers in math class, working on an assembly line was not much of a challenge. So he decided to try to borrow $1,000. God knows, some banker, let this immigrant young man borrow $1,000, and that's how he started the store. And they lived by the store. And Grandma will tell you there were times she didn't have money for milk. It was so hard at the beginning. And as far as Grandpa, well, he was my favorite person in the whole world. And anything and it was just, it's like we were best buddies. Best buddies forever and ever. His death really decimated me. That I just, for years, I really couldn't come to terms with that. I couldn't, just really couldn't. Still can't in a lot of ways.
They used to talk about those old car department stores a lot when you were growing up. Was that
No,
always a topic?
Who's they?
They meaning your mother and.
Well, the stores were kind of central to our existence, so there was a lot of conversation relative to those things. For example, when my father came home from work, how are things at the
store.
stores? It always carried the name the store from the original Del Rey store, and then became the stores. Uh, yeah, a lot was said, but mostly it was whether or not there was money that was made that day.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Really, I think that's the extent of it.
I was gonna say, the store, first place, if our mother went to the market, she went to the market. Here people go to the store. To this day, when I hear someone's going to the store, I think of the store, not the market. If you're buying food, you're going to the market, not the store. The old Del Rey store was a neat place, especially at Christmas.
That was undoubtedly
And Mark
the
and
store.
I always had to work.
Yeah, we all worked there.
Talk about that. I'm curious to know what you did there and what it
Made
was like.
boxes.
You
When
mean
we
I
were kids,
dust.
you mean, yeah. Made lots and lots of boxes. Making boxes is making things that people would put their purchases in, as opposed to a bag or something. You know, if you bought a shirt, you put it in a box. Well, I made those boxes. Making a box just involves folding some corners together. But it was a big thing for me.
How old were you then? About.
Maybe 8.
And what was the store like? What physically?
Oh, it
what
was great. It was an old place, as I remember it.
With a tin ceiling.
Best part about it was the basement. It was full of ghosts. And
Oh, the clock.
Hmm?
The clock. I should bring the clock from the basement. Oh well.
There,
Do that later.
yeah, the mannequins were kept down there. Scared the living daylights out of a person. Just getting up the curse to go up. It was like going into a sort of like a dry goods catacomb. It was kind of neat.
Did you work in any of the other stores?
Yeah, off and on. I think we all did. I know I used to sell there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was pretty good.
Shelly, did you work there too, or?
Always. We had to straighten stock. My great thing was straightening stock. I used to hate to straighten stock. And then when I got older and we opened the Plymouth Road store, then I went to work all summer with my father and got the ladies' ready-to-wear department. And I'll never forget, in those days, now it's all done, it's all automated, but in those days when you made a ticket for a woman's dress, it was done by hand, and you had to punch the little machine. This is a handheld thing that had all the coding for the manufacturer and the color and the price. And he was busy with the salesman, and I coded a whole thing of dresses, and he was so proud of me that I did this all by myself, and I was only 12 years old. And so I spent that whole summer until the store opened, going to work with him. At the old Del Rey store, I mostly straightened stock and played with some of the old sales help who, like when I was real little, they used to make my Halloween costumes and stuff. Jean Krishke used to. And they were like old friends. I mean, it was like having a lot of grandmothers or something.
Did you feel special when you walked in the store?
Oh, sure.
Is that something that Rick was saying, that when he walked in, it was like, you know, what can we do for you? You know,
Yeah.
It's like this. He felt really like a king, you know, when he walked in.
But I was always curious as to how things were made. And I remember once when Mother and Daddy were in New York, we'd been to the store the weekend before, and I bought a pattern for doll clothes and some material. And this woman looked at me like, you know, your mother can buy you all the doll clothes you could ever want. Why are you doing this? But Grandpa had also bought me a little teeny sewing machine. And to this day, I didn't know what a facing was. So I just made it up without the facing. But sewing stuff, I mean, was just fascinating. I used to really like it. And Joe Swartney and his daughter. I mean, that was like, you know, those people were sort of like family. We used to go there on Christmas. And in fact, when you told me that her father had died, I called her and spoke with her. And to this day, I envied. She had a beautiful red velvet coat and hat. Oh well. But you know, it was like another era that I can almost sometimes smell the smell of that place. The old Del Rey store. That was sort of like magic.
Well, in answer to your question, I never felt horribly special or singled out. I sold men's clothes, and I wasn't on commission. The other folks in the department uh, liked it better if I wasn't, because I worked pretty diligently at it, and but at the same time, I didn't want it wasn't right for me to take money from them, take their customers.
Mm-hmm.
But it was pretty much of a workaday existence. It was entirely summers or nights or whatever.
Hmm.
But you were older
enjoyed it.
then. You were older then.
I was older, yeah, I was 16, 17, 18, around there.
What memories do you have of your mother and Bill and Meyer getting together in family settings? Were there a lot of get-togethers that you can
At
remember?
about what age?
Oh, just up through the years when you were maybe,
Oh.
like 8, 9.
Okay, those would largely be family dinners, either for holy day or holiday or whatever. As far as where attendance was, I think, mandatory, and folks really did, I think, look forward to that. As far as group picnics, that sort of thing, no. I don't recall any of that sort of thing.
What were the holidays like at Grandma Molly's house? Passover. What are your memories of that?
I think we'd have to go back to
When Grandpa Harry was
yeah.
alive,
Yeah.
the
When
best
he was
ones.
alive, those were
Somebody lost
probably the
something when
best,
Uncle Blair did it.
What was that like? What
well, you
would
got
usually
the
happen?
idea that there was a definite leader, which would be the grandfather, and he sort of established the tone, the rules, the law, what have you.
But he would stop and tell a funny story in between.
Yeah,
It wasn't like, it was religious, yes, but it wasn't like Mrs. Wertheimer's Seder. We were there one year when Grandpa and Grandma were out of town, and where everybody gets up and washes their hands.
That's Laura's family?
Yeah,
yeah, that would be much more
much more to the book.
traditional.
Ours were close. I don't know, I was little. I used to like looking for the matzah and getting the money. There was always the big thing, who was thinner that Passover, me or Lisa.
It was good to be a boy in that family because you didn't get into the competition.
Uh-huh. Sounds like there was a lot of competition.
Yeah, there was, I think. I think it was... Well, Aunt Laura was so hung up about being skinny. It was just about whatever. So she made Lisa's life miserable, and my mother made my life miserable. I'm not sure in the end it really was worth it, or had anything to do with the way anything turned out, or any one of us turned out. The only time things were uncomfortable, quite frankly, was when Ricky was little. I guess it was his turn to read the 4 questions, and he had trouble reading them, and your father was having a hissy. And my father was having a hissy with your father, because he was such a little boy, and kids learn to read at different rates and at different whatevers. And Ricky was getting terribly upset because his father was it was just that was an awful scene. Unfortunately, the Passover, I remember, I think because there was such a terrible tension over something that wasn't important enough to get upset about. I mean, it really was silly, absolutely ridiculous. So that I remember. I think I mostly remember my father saying, "Someday I'm going to steal that kid." He really liked Ricky an awful lot.
How did your father get in? I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but how did your father get involved with the Zolkar department stores?
He married my mother.
Was it right after he married your mother that he?
No. No, he was a chiropractor for a while, and he followed his father back and forth across the country. And my mother did not want to live in California or Texas. And my father really wanted to go to medical school, and Grandpa Harry could see no reason for him to go to medical school, to be a doctor. When here we had this wonderful business that he could just step into, and he was very, to his dying day, really unhappy. He He really hated the retail business. As I said, there was one time when he could have bought this group of stores out east, and Mother still, she wouldn't leave town. In the end, of course, she had to leave town. So, who knows? It's like so much water over the bridge.
Could you talk a little about your mother, what she was like, what her personality was, and as you remember growing up, what she liked to do?
Garden.
She liked to be a gardener.
She always had there was always conflict there because Grandma Molly didn't drive, so Mother had to take her every place. And I know there was a lot of times when my mother resented it. And my mother was not the daughter Grandma Molly wanted. My mother was very shy and introverted, which is why a lot of people thought she was a snob, especially the way she looked. It sort of compounded the issue. And she really liked to be alone doing her own thing, and so she just had too many shoulds and have-dos, which we all have, you know. Grandma would have preferred, you know, the society type daughter, and a lot of times my mother pushed me to do things, I think very often, to make Grandma happy. Even when I was growing up and away from town with almost grown children, and I remember calling Grandma and telling her I joined American Association of University Women here. And the first remark out of Grandma's mouth, not "Isn't that nice?" and "Isn't it a nice group of girls?" Her first remark was, "Maybe someday you'll be president." Well, today I am. She unfortunately didn't live to see it. But, you know, that was the way she thought. If I joined something, I had to be president. If I took dancing lessons, I had to be the best dancer. Unfortunately, I didn't have to worry about being the best piano player because he was by birth.
He already existed.
Yeah, you know, that was one game I just didn't have to play. It was wonderful. To this day, I don't mind plinking a little on the piano, and everybody can stick their fingers in their ears. I mean, I'm happy.
Yeah. So Grandma Molly's had some high expectations for your mother and for you as well.
The expectations, I think, when I look back, were almost unfair, and yet I did the exact same thing to my own children. So, because I'll tell you, if you don't have expectations for your children, they won't ever achieve anything.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to achieve anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, maybe they carried it overboard just a little bit, which might have been very typical of upwardly mobile immigrant people. But on the other hand, without that kind of whatever's behind me, I'd have been in a lot of trouble now. Because now, the past 10 years of my life, I had to row my own boat. And how would I have known what to do?
Mm-hmm. Any other memories of your mom, just in general, about what kind of personality she had? Or?
Yes.
Kind of basic loner, I would say.
Yeah.
She could function really quite well in company. Infinite good taste, I
Yes.
believe. Infinitely good taste. But she preferred to live quietly in a garden. Well-read, very literate person. And she could live up to whatever was expected of her if she chose to. But I think there came a time when she just didn't choose to.
I mean, her decorating taste, even what to wear, she used to always put out what I should wear. I never had this, to this day, I go to one store twice a year. They dress me, I pay the bill, and I leave. I still don't know what to put on. I can put on t-shirts and shorts, and I'm happy as a clam. But, you know, Mother always knew exactly what looked good on you, exactly what to wear, exactly how to decorate the house. And it wasn't like she was being high-handed about it. It was absolutely innate. The only time I remember I had done, when I first moved to Grand Rapids, and I had made this display of antique kitchen tools on my wall in the duplex we were renting. And she thought it was wonderful, and I didn't think too much about it, because mothers always tell you things are wonderful. And then she moved into this absolutely beautiful house in Ohio. And I came down for a weekend, and she had this box of antique kitchen tools and a hammer and nails, and she said, "Now you do my wall." And I said, "You want me to do it?" You know, what? She says, well, you're better than I am. And I looked at, and that was the best compliment she ever paid me.
I think a lot of these things seeped in and affected both of us, although we didn't know it. For example, me, when I was younger, the thought of gardening was basically repulsive. But now I use many of the tools that were used, that she used 40 years ago.
We still have them.
Still have them. And we do, as you've seen, we do a lot of that. And the way this place looks has got a lot of rose stern in it. Sort of subliminally, it's always stayed there. Just needed time to come out in the right place. And in much the same way, we live out here where we are alone. So there are certain aspects. My father was also a loner. So in that respect, they got along quite well. It's not as though one was a party animal and one was a party.
Yeah, they had a great marriage. Only Mark and I screwed up.
Yeah.
We somehow weren't able to reproduce this the setting in which we were brought up. Maybe we thought it would just happen naturally, you know.
What about your memories of Uncle Meyer? What do you remember about him? Growing up?
That's a good question.
Well, I can reflect on that a little bit. Only to the extent that my feelings about Uncle Meyer is that basically a good Joe type. He was an okay guy. I did resent that he was in an upstairs office while my dad was slaving in the basement, but you know, that would be a biased perspective, and I know that. That aside, and having even gone overboard in saying that, basically a nice person.
Yeah, but he was what there was a side of him that was nice, and there was a side of him that was what I called a convoluted snob, because I really, you know, as far as I was concerned, my father was far better educated and a much more intelligent man. And Uncle Meyer took the opportunity to go to college just to screw around with the ladies. He really broke his mother and father's heart with that. He wasn't stupid. He could have gone. There was plenty of money to send him. Grandma Molly went to the University of Michigan 3 different times to beg to try to get him in.
I remember that story. Yeah.
You know, it wasn't. And so there's a part of him. I guess I really like when it was really hard when I was with him. I liked him.
We didn't know.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know. There was a part of him that you couldn't help but like. And the part of him that you didn't trust. Maybe that was it. That you felt like you couldn't trust him, especially after Grandpa died. I really had a hard time trusting somebody that did his own sister in. You know, I just, you know,
Can you talk about that? I know we talked about this earlier, but just could you talk about what happened there?
The story that I heard was that he failed to pay payroll taxes at the store, and they were going to put him in jail. And so he borrowed the inheritance from Mother and Grandma to make the payroll taxes so he wouldn't go to jail. I know that John Hildebrand, who was the controller at that time, I know through my father that he had for over a year been on Uncle Meyer's case to change certain ways in which the store was being run. But a controller can only tell you if the boss doesn't want to listen, the boss doesn't want to listen.
So he had offered advice that wasn't
Taken. That's right. And I just don't have any respect for somebody who can do that.
Why do you think he didn't take his advice?
I don't know. Ego maybe.
Yeah.
I remember as a 17-year-old or 16-year-old stomping up and down the living room on Outer Drive while he outlined his plan to buy the house in Lincolnshire. There was trouble at the store. They were making my father the president off and on so that to shove the bill collectors on to different people. I mean, there was a whole lot, and I didn't have an MBA when I was 16, and to me it seemed pretty stupid if money was tight. Why do you need a house 4 times the size of the one you're already living in, which was not a shack to begin with?
Mm-hmm. What do you think happened to those old cover department stores? Why did they go bankrupt?
They were poorly managed.
and mismanagement.
Mismanagement, you had discounters coming into Detroit. Rather than react to it in time, he just played out this old string. That
Wasn't keeping
that
up
is
with the times.
mismanagement, yeah.
Do you remember the?
There was plenty of discussion as to what to do to change the image, to change. I mean, there was a time when they were going to call it Z's and make it sort of a discount thing. I'm not sure that any of it would have worked in light of what was going on all around it. But damn it, they didn't even try.
What
He
could
didn't try.
Uncle Meyer didn't try.
Right.
What do you think would have saved the old cover department store?
Like I said, maybe nothing, but at least try. And there was no attempt to
I
try.
think maybe the attempt to try would have taken monies,
That he had already screwed up.
or that perhaps were used to pay off non-business enterprises, i.e. house, golf club memberships, the things that made the ego feel good. That money might have been used to improve the golf course. That's speculation.
Mm-hmm.
See, when Grandpa belonged to Knollwood, we could all go out there, it seemed, when I was little. But when Grandpa died, it was like only Uncle Meyer belonged to Knollwood. Not Knollwood, it was Tam O'Shanter originally. When we were little, it was Tam O'Shanter. And then he went to Knollwood.
Yeah, we didn't have it.
But we didn't go.
belong there,
We
no.
didn't belong there.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were really little, I can remember going to Tam O'Shanter a lot for dinner. And my father playing golf. But I'm not sure whether there was at one time a family membership when Grandpa Harry was alive. I don't know. I really don't. But I do know that certain of that evaporated after Grandpa died. And I can remember your dad joining some swimming club and going there swimming. That was a lot of fun. Ramblewood, that was.
Ramblewood.
Oh, that was. As a little kid, I thought that because I only cared about the pool, anyways.
Huh.
And your mother would invite us to go to Ramblewood swimming. My other uncle, who always had the best view of the Hudson's Thanksgiving Day parade, never once. He knew somebody who could never once asked any of us to go. All their friends' children went. Everybody else went.
He invited me.
Well,
I did.
As
Good
I
for you.
As I understand it, he wouldn't even invite his own father to play golf.
oh really? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
So
He had he was just
he was
driven by
trying to-
ego.
Yeah.
Do you remember the closing of the stores? Was it a gradual closing, or was it like
No.
all of a sudden overnight everything just went?
I remember people calling my mother, and my mother trying to be really brave, and her heart was just breaking. It was terrible. I do remember that.
I mean,
Nettie Stewart calling especially.
was it overnight this happened, or?
Well, within a few months. I just,
I mean, was
Mamie died, the stores closed, I don't know, everything like,
kind of
it's like
messed up.
watching her whole life sort of fall apart. And I got married. Oh well. I wonder sometimes what I was doing. Or whether I just ran away.
What do you remember about your Uncle Bill? What do you have any memories, any stories, anything? What his personality was like?
Crazy man.
Pale fellow, well met type. He liked he liked his toys, and he liked to buy toys for kids. I remember the time that he took us to a pet store. This is before he was married. Bought us a couple of hamsters.
No,
we
that
needed
was when
hamsters,
Grandpa
but
Harry died.
Apparently at that time,
That was when Grandpa Harry died when they weren't sitting Shiva on Saturday.
yes, there was a hamster with hamsters.
That's when he took us to get the hamster.
Okay, fine,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
But I think he
But
was married already.
Was he? Okay,
Yeah.
it might be that he was married. Anyway, he did get us hamsters. I don't know why, but we got hamsters. The hamsters eventually killed off one another, thank heaven.
So he got you some hamsters.
He also drove, I think, a yellow Buick.
Yellow
convertible.
Buick, right. But I guess he was like a lot of fun and stuff, but then he would do some things that were, well, I remember once when we came back from Texas, and we lived in Grandma Molly's house for a while till the house was finished being built. And that was it. The yellow car brought up the funny. I haven't thought about this in a million years. And you and I had gone somewheres. He drove Grandma Molly somewheres, and you and I were in the back seat. And I was pretty smart, even if I say so much. For a 5 or 6-year-old, there were things that went on in Texas. I guess I had to grow up sort of quick in some ways. I mean, my mother was sick there, and there was nobody. I can remember at 5 making a bath because I knew Marky had to have his bath before his nap, you know. So it's sometimes when I look at a 5-year-old, and yet I could only have been 5 and a half or six when this took place. So we were driving in the car, and I don't know what they were talking about, but your father was wailing all over Grandma Molly about how they were spoiling me, and I was going to grow up to be this awful person. Well, I was sitting right there. I mean, kids hear things. Kids understand. And that was he hurt my feelings terribly. It was never, I never idolized him quite the same after I was 6.
Yeah. It's pretty insensitive.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but back then, you're talking probably somewhere around the
1948.
Yeah,
Sensitivity
that
was
common,
not an
yeah.
issue, you're right.
Children were to be seen, never heard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're
feelings that
probably right.
were part of the picture.
I'll give you that one.
You want to talk about this now? Your
Oh, yes, this is...
let me stop.
All right. Let me get the bottle of wine. Want me to put it on the bottom of my hand? The wallpaper. So there's no distraction.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Those lights.
Maybe you could just sit there.
Will that do it? When Grandma Molly first came to America and lived with her aunt, first place she loved chocolate. She loved chocolate so much that she ate a box of X-Lax once and got sick. And somewhere in the middle there, she met an Italian boy, and they were madly in love. And the Italian mama and Aunt Frida, this was not going to fly at all. So they broke it up. And this was the gift of unrequited love. At one time, this is a chocolate pitcher. And at one time, there were little cups to go with it. My mother has had it all these years, probably because Grandma Harry really didn't care to have it around. I mean, there are pictures of it sitting in our mantelpiece before I was born. So I guess he really didn't want it around, and that was the earliest chance Grandma Molly had to get rid of it.
Do you suppose he broke the cups?
I don't know. I remember cups as a little girl, or a couple of cups. But it's Nippon, which means Japanese, around the turn of the century. And one thing, there's a mark on the bottom in green, and of the 3 colors of marks, green is the best one. So he did have excellent taste, I will say.
So this was a gift from Grandma Molly's.
This is a gift from the Italian boy who was in love with Grandma Molly.
On the boat?
No,
Oh.
not in the boat, in Manhattan.
In Manhattan.
She met him
Before
in
she
Manhattan.
met Grandpa Harry.
Right.
So how old was she? Was about 16, 17?
About 17.
17 years old. Right.
The clock was stuck down in one of the rooms in the basement of the Del Rey store. I used to look at it every time I passed. I was afraid to go into the room by myself. Because like Mark said, it was catacombs down there. There were a lot of different rooms. Although in reality, I bet there weren't as many as I remember. And when the stores closed, I don't know how I got it. Maybe it was Sheldon went down with the boys to get some shelving for the garage. No, the boys wouldn't have been born yet. He must have gone down with Mark.
Yeah.
And I remember telling somebody, you have to go down the basement and find the clock. Well, when I got the clock home, it doesn't work. And it's not, I mean, it's an old clock. It's not really any great antique or anything. But when you look in the back of it, the thing that makes the bell bong has been bent. And I once asked Grandma, she remembered it, and she said it was bent because Grandpa couldn't stand to hear it go off.
Was this clock, did they buy this clock or was
I
it
have
David's?
no idea. It was down the basement at the Delray store on a shelf. Those kind of clocks are about 1910, 1920. It was probably something that just got stuck down there. But I knew it was there, and I don't know. What hair?
You said your father was a handsome man.
Yeah.
Your mother was good.
There he is. William.
Phil, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Good to see you. How've you been?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Doing good. How's things going?
All right, I guess.
Doing all right. Your car doing okay?
It's been doing better, but it'll do all right now.
Yeah. Somebody just smashed into you?
Yeah, ran it back in. To the tune of $3,300.
Oh dear.
Oh my God.
You're kidding. Mr. Reed goes, Dan, you could buy a whole car for what it's going to cost for a quarter pound.
Is it doing it?
Yeah, I'm just taping it.
I bet we have a whole beautiful week now, and it rains on Friday. Nothing makes me angrier.
Huh? What?
Because we have these beautiful weeks and it rains all week.
Burlap.
Harry needs some local color there. His bare feet. Thank you, Harry. I will someday do that. Mother will freak out. She'll remember what my mother sounds like.
Shelly? Why don't you
What?
take a picture of Beagle and tell the story of Beagle?
I don't think telling the story of Beagle is real neat. I just wish the new curtains were on the windows. Darn it. We were sitting in my beautiful chair. They took it, the people took it to reupholster it, and they had it in their shop.
Mm-hmm.
And more people came by and oohed and ahed over the chair, and they couldn't deliver it out to the house, so that weekend I went for visitation for my chair.
Huh.
Oh yeah, well, what did you do with them? I'll get out of the way.
Any questions?